This is a letter from Ted Leonis. Well, not a letter. I guess it's a letter. It's out all over the internet. Ted Leonis is a very, very wealthy man. He owns the Washington, D.C. basketball and hockey teams. He's a big lib. He's given an enormous amount of money to Democrats. And he wrote this blog item called Class Warfare Yuck. And he really wrote it to Obama. And he says, and Leonis will get a day or 2 days worth of attention, but we'll be hearing about Warren Buffett, a.k.a. Buffett, until, we're all bled dry. He writes, my dad was a waiter. My mom was a secretary. Neither attended college. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and Lowell, Massachusetts. I attended public schools. My parents, in their best year, earned $31,000 combined. My dad worked for tips, often received in change, as he worked a counter for breakfast and lunch at a diner. My dad, too, once lost his job. I remember the angst in our household. I attended Georgetown University, which at the time wasn't a need-blind school via college loans. I paid them all back 5 years after I graduated. I have great empathy for middle-class or lower-class Americans. He said, my horizons as a young adult were not expansive. I was programmed to be a produce department manager at a grocery store in my neighborhood. That was my dad's aspiration for me. I would have been proud to work hard to become a leader in a grocery store, and I bet I would have been good at it. By luck and hard work, my career took a different path. He said, I say this as I read all the rhetoric about class warfare, the rift that is being created between economic middle and lower class, and as the president said, those millionaires and billionaires. The real rift in philosophy, though, is, do you want the government to create jobs and stimulate the economy, or do you want America's small business to be the engine of growth? Economic success has somehow become the new boogeyman. Some in the Democratic Party are now casting about for enemies and business leaders, and anyone who has achieved success in terms of rank or fiscal success, being cast as a bad guy in a black hat. This is counter to the American dream and is really turning off so many people that love American and basically carry out our country, they love America, and basically carry out our country on their back by paying taxes and by employing people and creating GDP. I'm reading as it's written. This is a bad move, Ted Leonis writes, owner of the Washington, D.C. basketball and hockey team. It's a bad move, all designed by some pollster who said this is the way to get votes during the re-election. It should be stopped. We should be healing and creating teams, not dividing and pitting people against one another. He says, I know the president isn't speaking to me specifically when he talks, but many times I hear stuff and I cringe personally. As a friend told me the other day who lives in China, every time your president talks of late, it costs us billions in market cap and confidence in your country and your economy. He says, why do we devalue success in the U.S. when the rest of the world is trying to emulate what we have created as an economic system? He says, I do have a nice home with a housekeeper. I have only one home. I bet there's more staff at the White House, though. Camp David, what kind of real estate tax is the White House paying? Nice jewelry here. He has a link to, I think, Michelle. Click away, stop it, upgrade the discourse, he says. With my investments and board seats and companies that I own, I'm at a leadership position in concerns that employ more than 200,000 people. We do our best to be good corporate citizens. I know in the companies that I own personally, or I'm the largest shareholder, that we support now more than 500 charities. We care. Pick some business leaders that you work with and make them heroes. Don't denounce them. Showcase them as great Americans that care and hire and employ people. Employment is the biggest issue you will face when re-election comes. If people aren't working, they'll blame you and your administration. And since you have never worked before in a real job for a real company, you need help from people who have been there. Don't push them away. He said, I pay taxes. I'm willing to pay even more taxes, but I would want accountability that the money was being spent wisely on infrastructure investments, education and retraining. Here's the poor liberal stuff. And anything that makes us more competitive and gets people working again. That seems fair, doesn't it? I said, I voted for our president. I've maxed out on personal donations to his reelection campaign. I forgot his campaign wants to raise $1 billion. That is a lot of money, money, money. Money still talks. It blows my mind when I'm asked for money as a donation. At the same time, I'm getting blasted as being a bad guy. Someone needs to talk to our president, down off this rhetoric about good versus evil, about two classes in math. Our country was founded on the premise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Is anyone happy right now with all of this? Ted Leonis, billionaire and owner of the Washington, D.C. hockey and basketball teams, among other things. And he's quite right. I'm just surprised it took him this long to come around. He's already maxed out on Obama's reelection. But better late than never. Because we have frauds like Mark Cuban. That's right, you big-mouthed jerk in Texas, Mark Cuban. You creep. And doddering old fools like Warren Buffett. That's right. I don't worship these billionaires. Not at all. Period. They know how to make money, but they don't know how to save a country. And they pretend they're looking out for you, ladies and gentlemen. They're not looking out for bullcrap. You look behind these quote-unquote millionaires and billionaires who love Obama. Most of them are cronies. Most of them have some side deals going on. Most of them rely on government for something. Or they're so rich, God bless them, they don't give a damn. And here's the thing. I get emails and calls from folks, you, who earn $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, on a good year, maybe $100,000 and $140,000, defending millionaires and billionaires. Not because you like them, not because you know them, which you don't, but because you're Americans. Because you believe in free markets, because you believe in achieving the American dream. And if you can't do it, you hope your children and your grandchildren can. You want them to become well off and to be successful and to hire people and invent things and produce things and give money to charity. That's what we all want for our kids, to contribute to society in a million different ways. And that's the bottom line. When the government becomes oppressive, when it starts attacking its own citizens, when it starts attacking its most successful citizens, it is attacking the future of your children and grandchildren. It is attacking their opportunities. It's smothering them because it's taking them over. And then it's redefining what it is to be an American. It's redefining what it is to be not just an American, but to be approved by your government. That's right. We have citizens that the government disapprove of and citizens that the government approves of. If you're broke, you don't have a nickel to your name, you don't have a roof over your head, and you need the government to help you, you're an approved citizen. And yet if you make money legitimately, legally, you employ people, you help them feed their families, send their kids to college as a result of a salary, you're not approved, you're disapproved. Because the government doesn't benefit from you. Oh, it'll take your money, but you're in competition with it, apparently. That's why people who are not millionaires and billionaires fight like hell to save our Constitution and our capitalist system. We do it for our children. We do it because we want them to be better off and more successful than we are. And we also know that a massive government with millions of tentacles, hundreds of thousands of bureaucrats issuing regulations, smothering our children and our grandchildren with massive debt and control and banning products and banning services and on down the list. We know our kids are going to suffer. We know our kids are not going to be free. We know our kids are going to be wards of the state. That's why we resist. Not for the millionaires and billionaires, but for our families. That's why we fight this. We conservatives, we still believe in the American dream. What we're fighting is this nightmare of massive big government. That's what we're doing. So when we get lectures from somebody like Warren Buffett, who's worth $40, $50 billion, or we get lectures from a punk like Mark Cuban in Texas, who's worth a couple $1 billion, we're disgusted. These men made it. They made it big. Good for them. But we want our children and our grandchildren to be able to make it big too. Whatever they wish to pursue. Whether it's capital, that is, profits, money, whether it's some other desire that they have that doesn't involve material interests, whatever they want. We want them to have the same opportunity that Warren Buffett's had and Mark Cuban has had, and for that matter, Barack Obama has had. That's why we fight. Where the billionaires bend over backwards for higher taxes, more government, more regulations, because they feel confident nobody's going to take from them. We fight them. We fight for the liberty, the private property rights, the Constitution, from which they benefited themselves and wish to deny to your own children and grandchildren. That's the battle. That's why people without money fight. And that's why people with money throw in with the big government left. I'm asked this question all the time, and that's the best answer I can give you. Because it's what I believe. It's what I live.